The night I lost everything started with nothing more than the sound of my own footsteps echoing through the foyer of my Georgia home. My heels clicked against the marble floor, each step heavier than the suitcase hanging from my shoulder. I had just returned from a brutal 3-day trip to Manhattan, 3 days spent fixing a $1 million deal my husband, Ethan Carter, had nearly destroyed. All I wanted was warmth, a shower, silence, maybe a kiss from him, maybe a thank you. I should have known better. The lights in the living room were on bright, too bright. At 10 p.m., this house was usually quiet. Ethan would normally be in his office pretending to work, and my 20-year-old son Logan would be glued to online games. But the moment I pushed open the door, I felt it, something cold, sick, wrong. And then I saw them, all 4 of them sitting together on the cream-colored sectional sofa I bought last Christmas. Ethan, my mother, Elaine, my son, Logan, and my younger sister, Harper. They looked like a jury waiting to deliver a verdict. What's going on? I asked, my voice snagging on fear I didn't understand yet. Logan stood up first. He didn't walk to hug me. He didn't smile. He blocked my path like a bouncer. Mom, he said, voice flat, unfamiliar, you need to sit down. We need to talk. My stomach folded in on itself. Logan, you're scaring me. Is someone sick? What's happening? You're not in charge anymore, he said, as if rehearsed. As a family, we made a decision. You need to accept a new reality. My eyes darted from one face to another. Ethan wouldn't even look at me. My mother's lips were pursed in some twisted expression of superiority, and Harper was twirling a strand of hair and smirking like this was entertainment. What decision? I whispered. Ethan finally raised his eyes. It's over, Lila, he said, calm, cruel. Everything's over. The marriage, the business, all of it. My heart dropped. What are you talking about? Logan actually pointed toward my sister. Harper makes Dad happier now. She listens. She understands him. You don't. The world stopped. My sister, my own sister. Then I saw it. Ethan's hand resting casually on her thigh. Not apologetic. Not ashamed. Comfortable. My mother added softly, Sweetheart, you've been married to your work for years. Ethan deserves someone who's present. We all agreed it's best you move out tonight. Move out of my house. The house I paid for. My breath thinned, my ears rang, my pulse hammered so loudly I could barely hear myself speak. Are you all out of your minds? I whispered. No one answered. They just stared, as if I were already gone. I felt something inside me snap, not break, not shatter snap. The first crack in the woman I used to be. But they mistook my silence for defeat. They had no idea what kind of storm they had just created. They thought throwing me out would end me. They didn't know it was the moment I began, because what I discovered next made their betrayal look gentle. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I didn't even cry. I just stood there staring at the 4 people who had shaped my entire life. My husband, my mother, my son, and the sister I once protected from the world, now sitting together like a committee appointed to erase me. Finally, I managed to speak. Ethan, you're really doing this? With her? He shrugged, as if I had asked whether he wanted coffee. It just happened, Lila. You've been distant for years. You put business before family. I need a wife who's emotionally available. Emotionally available. That was rich, coming from a man who couldn't even remember our anniversary without calendar alerts. My mother, Elaine, chimed in with that judgmental tone she'd mastered over a lifetime. Lila, honey, you need to take responsibility. Harper and Ethan have a real connection. You've been cold, stressed, unpredictable. This is better for everyone. I laughed, one sharp, humorless sound. Harper's smirk widened, her fingers laced with Ethan's as if she were claiming her prize. Then Logan, my son, my flesh, delivered the final blow. Dad is keeping the house. I'm staying with him. You leaving will make things easier. There's too much tension when you're here. For a moment, everything inside me froze. My own son had chosen convenience and comfort over me. Logan, I whispered, are you really choosing this? Choosing her? Don't make this dramatic, Mom. You care more about spreadsheets than family. Harper listens to me. She actually treats me like an adult. An adult? The same kid I bailed out of 2 minor charges last year because Ethan didn't even show up? I had given my life to these people, and here they were replacing me like an outdated appliance. Ethan stood, adjusting his shirt cuffs. We already spoke with lawyers. It's cleaner if you leave tonight. Security will escort you off the property if needed. Security. For me. I looked at him, at all of them, and felt something strange wash over me. Not despair, not anger, clarity. I straightened my back, took a slow breath, and said quietly, "You think you've won?" Harper rolled her eyes. Ethan scoffed. Logan muttered something under his breath. They didn't understand. Not yet. I didn't bother taking off my coat or picking up my suitcase. I still had my spare car keys in my pocket. Without another word, I walked past them, past the sofa where they'd staged their little coup, and headed toward the front door. That's when my mother called after me, a hint of panic in her voice. "Lila, wait! We haven't gone over the settlement. Ethan is offering you a generous—" I slammed the door before she could finish. The cold Atlanta night hit me like a slap, drying the tears I refused to shed. I climbed into my car. The driveway lights glowed behind me. Inside the house, I could see silhouettes raising champagne glasses. They were already celebrating Dotnanes. I backed out slowly, calmly, because the woman driving away was not the woman who had walked in minutes ago. No, she was someone entirely different. But betrayal wasn't the worst part of that night. The real nightmare began when I tried to buy gas and discovered I had exactly $0 to my name. I drove for almost an hour without direction, letting the glow of Atlanta's skyline smear into red and gold streaks across my windshield. The night air inside the car felt heavy, thick, like everything familiar had collapsed behind me. By the time my fuel light blinked on, I realized I'd been running on adrenaline instead of sense. I pulled into a 24-hour gas station off I-285, the kind of place with flickering lights and a bored teenage clerk who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Fine, I just needed gas. A moment to breathe. A moment to figure out where a woman goes after her family throws her out like garbage. I slid my platinum credit card, the one tied to our joint account, the one I use for everything from business dinners to groceries, into the pump. Processing. 2 seconds later, the screen flashed red, DEC lined. Please see attendant. I frowned. Impossible. That card had a 60,000 limit, and I paid the balance just days ago. I tried again. Declined. A cold knot formed in my stomach. I marched into the station and grabbed a bottle of water and gum just to test the card. The clerk barely looked up as I handed it over. Swipe. Beep. "Card's not working," he muttered, smacking his gum. "You got another one?" My pulse fluttered. "Try it again." He did. Declined. I felt heat rise up my neck. Fine. I grabbed my personal debit card, the one connected to my salary account. My money. Swipe. He shook his head. "Nope." I forced a breath. "There is money in that account." He shrugged. "Not according to this." My fingers trembled as I pulled out my phone. I opened my banking app. ACCESS. Denied. User authentication error. What? I tried again. ACCESS denied. I checked our company account, joint savings, my payroll deposit, all locked, all inaccessible. That's when reality hit so hard, my knees nearly buckled. Ethan hadn't just kicked me out. He had executed a financial kill switch. He had cut off every account, every card, every dollar. "This can't be happening," I whispered, but of course it could. He had planned this. You don't lock someone out of business accounts instantly unless you spend days preparing with the bank, unless you've told them lies, unless you've removed the co-owner, unless you intended to trap the other person with nothing. I dug through my purse with shaking hands until I found a zippered pocket with a few crumpled bills. 320s, $60. That was my net worth. I paid for $20 of gas and walked out, gripping the bottle of water like it was a lifeline. When I got back into my car, the silence felt suffocating. I wasn't just betrayed by the people I loved. I was financially erased. Ethan wanted me stranded, desperate, forced to crawl back to him and sign whatever generous settlement he and my mother had cooked up. But he forgot something. He forgot who built the empire he was sitting on, and he forgot I always always keep a backup plan. With only 40 left after gas, I found the cheapest motel on the highway, and when I opened my email there, I discovered Ethan's betrayal went way deeper than I imagined. The motel I found looked like the kind of place where hope went to die. A blinking neon vacancy sign, a cracked parking lot, and a tired-looking night manager behind a bulletproof glass window. $50, he said without emotion. 50. Almost everything I had left. I slid my last bills under the glass and received a rusted metal key in return. Room 14. The room smelled like cigarettes and old mistakes. The heater rattled when I turned it on, coughing out warm air mixed with dust. The blankets were thin, the mattress sagged, and somewhere in the walls, water dripped endlessly. This wasn't the kind of place a COO of a multi-million-dollar company should ever end up in, but tonight it was all I had. I sat on the edge of the bed, still wearing the same tailored suit I'd flown home in. I didn't even have the energy to remove my shoes. My hands were shaking, part fear, part shock. I pulled out my phone. 11:18 missed calls. Most were from Ethan's attorney, a ruthless man named Russell Blake, the same man I had personally hired years ago to help us navigate a difficult project acquisition. Now he was being used to bury me. Then came the emails. Subject: marriage dissolution agreement. Immediate action required. Subject: urgent NDA subject. Termination notice. Carter Developments. I felt my throat tighten as I opened the termination notice. Effective immediately. Your position as COO is terminated for cause. Allegations include corporate negligence and breach of fiduciary duty. Corporate negligence? Me? I was the one who stayed up until 3 a.m. reviewing contracts while Ethan played golf with potential investors. I was the one who fixed his failed deals. I was the one who managed every project he claimed credit for. My breath hitched. Then my phone buzzed again, a text from Logan. For a split second, stupid hope flickered inside me. Maybe he regretted it. Maybe he was confused. Maybe he needed his mom. I opened the message. Mom, please don't make this harder. Dad says he'll cut my tuition and my car if I don't support him in the divorce. He's going to make me VP of Acquisitions next year if I stay on his side. I'm just doing what's best for my future. My chest cracked. My son wasn't confused. He wasn't scared. He was choosing money. And Ethan knew exactly how to manipulate him dangling titles he wasn't qualified for, promising a lifestyle he didn't earn. I dropped the phone. It clattered onto the thin carpet. For the first time all night, the tears came, hot, heavy, violent. I cried for my son, for the years I sacrificed, for the love that was now weaponized against me. But as the sobs faded, something else rose in their place, a cold, steady burn. Ethan thought that by stripping me of money and titles, he had stripped me of power. But he forgot something. I built the kingdom he's sitting on. I designed every structure, every system, every back door. And kings fall hardest when the architect walks away. But when I opened my laptop in that filthy motel room, I discovered a secret back door Ethan never knew existed. And through it, I saw the true scale of their betrayal. The motel room was silent except for the hum of the broken heater and the distant rumble of trucks on the highway. I wiped my face, pulled myself together, and reached for my laptop bag, the one thing Ethan didn't manage to steal from me. Inside that bag lived something he had forgotten existed. My backup Wi-Fi hotspot. He couldn't shut off what he didn't know. I turned on my laptop. The familiar glow washed over my face, and for the first time since the world fell apart, I felt a tiny spark of control returning to my hands. I didn't try logging into the normal company network. I knew Ethan had already revoked my access, a basic lockout, but Ethan Carter was lazy. He relied on appearances, not foundations. Years ago, when we built Carter Developments, he insisted we create a master override access, a hidden administrator login that bypassed all security in case IT ever locked us out. He thought it was his insurance policy, but he never memorized the 64-character string I created. He threw the sticky note away after a week, assuming I would always be there to type it in for him. He was right, until tonight. My fingers hovered over the keys as muscle memory kicked in. A poem verse, GPS coordinates, the date our son lost his first tooth. Ethan never knew the meaning, never cared. I hit enter. Authenticating, access granted, administrator level. The entire digital skeleton of our company opened before me. Emails, contracts, wire transfers, internal memos, financial logs, server messages, everything Ethan thought he controlled. I wasn't just inside the system, I owned it. As I navigated through folders, I saw the truth of my marriage laid out in numbers and timestamps. I clicked open a folder titled Project H. My stomach churned. The H didn't stand for Highland Project, like Ethan once claimed. It stood for Harper. The first document was a wire transfer, $45,000, to Harper Lane Consulting, LLC, her maiden name. Next line, $12,800 at Cartier. Paid using company funds. Another, monthly rent for a luxury suite at the Lenox Grand E Towers. He had been financially supporting her for 3 years. And then it got worse. I opened a folder labeled Orion Holdings Group. I didn't recognize the name until I saw the signature, Harper Lane, CEO. Then the assets list hit me like a punch. Ethan had been secretly transferring the titles of our most valuable unencumbered properties to this Orion Holdings, a company owned by my sister. He wasn't planning to replace me emotionally. He was planning to erase me financially, build his empire with me, then hand it to her, wipe me clean. But the idiot made mistakes, amateur mistakes, forged signatures, mismatched timestamps, transactions approved while I was out of town, Harper's fake company listing my home address. With every document I opened, a cold electric clarity settled in my chest. I wasn't looking at an affair. I was staring at a conspiracy, and they were sloppy enough to leave fingerprints all over it. My tears dried, my pulse steadied, my mind sharpened. They thought they ruined me. They had no idea what I could do with the truth. But then I found something far darker, an email thread proving Ethan had been planning my destruction for years, and he wasn't working alone. My hands shook, not from fear this time, but from rage, pure, cold rage that sharpened everything around me. I kept scrolling through folders, piecing together the timeline of Ethan and Harper's betrayal. Then I found a folder buried deep in the server, Pervady Investigations. My breath caught. Inside was a subfolder labeled Target L. Carter, my name. I opened it. The first email was dated 2 years ago. From Ethan Carter to Hawthorne Private Investigation Subject Surveillance. Dig until you find something. I need grounds to void the prenup. Affairs, breakdowns, anything. My vision blurred. He had been looking for a way to get rid of me long before Harper. Another email from investigator. We followed her for 6 months. No evidence of misconduct. She works long hours, sees her mother occasionally, visits grocery stores, and attends meetings. Nothing questionable. Ethan replied, look harder or manufacture something. I won't lose half my assets to her. Manufacture. He asked them to fabricate dirt on me. The man I built an empire with, the man I sacrificed for, had been preparing to destroy me for years. I swallowed hard and clicked the next email, dated 1 week ago, from Ethan, forget finding dirt. We're going with the mental instability angle. Her family will testify. My stomach twisted. Elaine and Harper are on board, the investigator wrote. Your mother-in-law says she's noticed erratic, paranoid behavior. She will testify at the board meeting. My knees weakened. My own mother, willing to tell a court, a board, the world, that I was unstable, to help Ethan take everything. This wasn't a betrayal. It was an execution plan. Cold, calculated, cruel. I clicked a message labeled Board Strategy Final. Once she's removed as COO, we trigger the buyout clause at the lowest company valuation. After that, she has no legal claim to anything. I let out a shaky breath. Ethan wasn't just planning to divorce me. He wanted to reduce me to nothing, erase my name, take my company, rewrite history so I looked like the unstable one. They weren't replacing me. They were targeting me. And then I found the final nail, federal loan, documents, falsified. fake occupancy reports, forged lease agreements, a massive loan Ethan acquired using fraudulent signatures, some supposedly mine, though I was in Chicago during that time. This wasn't civil fraud. This was federal fraud. Jail time fraud, the kind of fraud prosecutors salivate over. And Ethan had signed each document as CEO. I leaned back in the cheap motel chair, letting the weight of the truth settle. Ethan thought he had outsmarted me by locking me out of accounts and firing me. But in his arrogance, he forgot the one rule in business: never betray the architect who built your kingdom. And now I was sitting in a dingy motel room holding more than betrayal. I was holding a nuclear weapon. With proof of fraud in one hand and a shattered heart in the other, I realized I needed an ally, someone powerful, ruthless, and hungry to destroy Ethan, and I knew exactly who to call. By the time the sun began to creep through the threadbare curtains of the motel, I had been awake for nearly 24 hours. Not because of fear, not anymore, because of clarity, cold, calculated clarity. I had everything I needed to annihilate Ethan, but I couldn't do it alone. Ethan had the lawyers, the influence, the board, the polished public image. I needed someone bigger, someone who hated Ethan as much as I now did, someone who would gamble their power just to watch him burn. And only one name came to mind: Alexander Creed. A billionaire real estate titan in Atlanta, old money, old power, a reputation made of steel and shadows. 3 years ago, Ethan stole a prime Beltline development deal from him by bribing a city official. Ethan bragged about it for months, thinking he'd outsmarted one of the most ruthless moguls in Georgia. Alexander never forgot. Men like him don't forget. I grabbed the burner phone I'd bought and dialed Creed Enterprises. A sharp professional voice answered. Creed Enterprises, office of the chairman. I need to speak to Mr. Creed, I said, steadying my voice. Tell him it's Lila Carter. And tell him I know how Ethan really got the Beltline rezoning approved. There was a pause. Then, one moment. 30 seconds later, a deep, controlled voice filled my ear. Mrs. Carter, Alexander Creed said, you've never contacted me before. Should I assume your husband finally did something stupid enough to make you switch sides? I exhaled. You have no idea. Then I'm listening. 20 minutes later, I was standing inside the private library lounge of the Peachtree Club, a place so exclusive you couldn't enter without an invitation written in ink older than I was. Alexander Creed sat in a leather armchair near a window overlooking the city. Silver hair, sharp jawline, eyes like tempered steel. A man built of power. He didn't stand when I approached. You look, he said calmly, like someone who's lost everything. I did, I replied, lowering myself into the chair opposite him. But I also found something that can destroy Ethan completely. His eyebrow lifted. Go on. I opened my laptop. No theatrics. I simply turned the screen, showing him the fraudulent wire transfers, the emails with the corrupt councilman, the fake tenant signatures. Alexander leaned in. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. So, he murmured, he really committed bank fraud while using my deal to fund his mistress and forged signatures on federal documents? He buried us in lies, I said coldly, but I dug them up. Alexander closed my laptop slowly. You're dangerous, Mrs. Carter. No, I corrected softly. I'm motivated. A small predatory smile curled on his lips. Good. I'll represent you in the divorce. My legal team will destroy him, and in exchange, I want the Beltline property when he defaults. He will default, I said. I've seen the numbers. Then we have a deal. He extended his hand. I shook it. In that moment, I wasn't the abandoned wife anymore. I was the storm Ethan never saw coming. With my new alliance forged, I was ready to strike. But first, I had to face the one person whose betrayal cut deepest, my son. 2 days after my meeting with Alexander Creed, I stood outside a glass high-rise downtown, Logan's new apartment, paid for by Ethan, paid for with my company's money. I shouldn't have been there, not with everything still raw inside me. But no matter what Ethan did, Logan was still my son. and I wasn't ready to abandon him to Ethan's corruption without trying one last time. I waited outside the lobby until he finally stumbled out around 11 a.m., sunglasses on, hoodie half zipped, smelling like a hangover, wearing sneakers. When he saw me, he stopped dead. "Mom?" he said, confused for a split second. Then his expression hardened. "What are you doing here?" I stepped forward gently. "Logan, sweetheart, I just want to talk," he scoffed. "Dad said you'd try to drag me into your drama." My chest tightened. Drama. That's what he thought this was. "I'm not here to fight," I said. "I'm here to save you." He rolled his eyes and started walking toward his car, a sleek, silver Porsche Ethan had given him recently. "Logan, wait, please," I said, following him. "Your father is setting you up. He modified your trust fund. He's using you as a shield. When everything collapses, he's going to throw you under the bus." Logan laughed, a hollow, joyless sound. "You're ridiculous," he snapped. "Dad believes in me. He's making me VP of Acquisitions next year." I stared at him. He could barely pass basic finance. He played video games until 4 a.m. most nights. He wasn't ready to run a lemonade stand, let alone a department. "Logan, he's lying to you," I whispered. He turned to face me fully now, anger tightening his jaw. "You know what your problem is, Mom?" he said bitterly. "You've always underestimated me. Dad sees my potential. You only see a kid." "I see a young man Ethan is manipulating," I said, my voice breaking. "I see my son walking into a minefield because his father offered him a shiny title and a sports car." "Stop it," he shouted. "God, you're so negative. Dad told me you'd try to sabotage me. He said you'd play the victim." I felt the words hit like a strike to the ribs. Victim. "Logan, I raised you," I whispered. "When Ethan missed your games, I was there. When you were sick, I stayed up all night. I protected you sometimes from him." His jaw clenched. "And I appreciate that. But that was then," he said coldly. "Now, you're just holding me back. Maybe Dad's right. Maybe you're not stable." The world around me tilted. He wasn't just repeating Ethan's lies. He believed them. My heart cracked, but I swallowed the pain. "Logan," I said softly, "don't go to the wedding." He stared at me for a long moment, then shook his head. "You're pathetic," he said quietly. "Stay away from me." He got into his Porsche, revved the engine, and peeled out of the parking lot. I didn't chase him. I stood there watching the taillights fade into the distance. My son was gone, not dead, not kidnapped, just gone, lost to Ethan's world of lies, wealth, and manipulation, and there was nothing left for me to do but let him fall. Losing my son broke me. But the breaking wasn't the end. It was the fuel I needed for the revenge I was about to unleash, starting with Ethan's wedding. After Logan drove off, leaving tire marks and a deeper scar across my heart, I knew something inside me had changed forever, not broken, shifted. I wasn't fighting for a marriage anymore, or a son who didn't want saving. I was fighting for the one thing I still owned, myself. And Ethan had no idea that the quiet, devastated woman he threw out was long gone. Back at my small rented apartment, paid under a temporary alias, Alexander Creed waited for me with a stack of files, a laptop, and a glass of water placed neatly at one end of my dining table. "How did it go with your son?" he asked. Though he already knew the answer from my expression, I sat down. He made his choice. Creed nodded slowly, his gaze sympathetic but firm. "Then we proceed," he said. "No more distractions." And just like that, the countdown began. For the next 10 days, I worked with Creed's forensic team from morning until dawn. We built a legal missile, something airtight, lethal, undeniable. Proof of corporate embezzlement fraud, falsified federal loan documents, misuse of investor funds, forged signatures, hidden asset transfers to Harbor's shell companies. Every crime Ethan thought he buried, we exhumed. While we worked, Ethan and Harper flaunted their new life online like two villains, too delusional to realize the hero of the story had upgraded her armor. Harper posted photos of new diamond jewelry with captions like, "When you're finally with your true soulmate by stomach." My stomach turned every time. My mother posted a picture of the three of them at a private wine tasting, a real family at last. Lila is taking time to heal. Heal? They thought I was licking my wound somewhere alone. Meanwhile, I was building the match that would burn their empire to the ground. And as for Ethan, he'd been busy too. He'd booked the grand ballroom at the St. Regis, one of the most expensive wedding venues in Atlanta, for a 300-guest extravaganza. Lavish, flashy, a public coronation for him and my sister. Perfect. Are you sure you're ready for this? Creed asked as we reviewed the final presentation that would play on the ballroom's giant screens. I'm past ready, I said. Our plan was simple. Let them gather. Let them celebrate. Let them think they've won. Then hit them with everything. 2 days before the wedding, something unexpected happened. A knock at my apartment door. When I opened it, I saw Derek Harper's ex-husband, the mechanic she drained dry before running off. I hadn't seen him in years. He held a cardboard box. I heard what they did to you, he said. You're the first person who ever treated me with respect, so I think you need this. Inside the box were old letters, copies of credit card statements opened under my name, a note from Ethan telling Harper, we keep going. 2 more years and everything will be ours. My blood ran cold. Derek, this is huge, I whispered. He nodded. Give them hell, Lila. I smiled, small but real. Oh, I will. Now everything was aligned. The evidence, the allies, the timing. The wedding wasn't going to be a celebration. It was going to be a reckoning. And on the night before their vows, I received the final piece of my plan. A tailored black tuxedo meant not for mourning, but for execution. The night before the wedding felt eerily calm, as if the universe was holding its breath, waiting for the explosion I was about to trigger. I sat alone in my small apartment, surrounded by documents, screenshots, burner phones, and a hard drive filled with Ethan's sins. That's when my door clicked open. Alexander Creed stepped inside, carrying a long black garment bag. You'll need this, he said. I unzipped it slowly. Inside was a custom-tailored, midnight black tuxedo, sleek, sharp, commanding, the kind worn by someone who didn't simply walk into a room. They owned it. Not feminine, not soft, not a dress meant to blend into the background. No, it was armor. I took the liberty of getting it made, Creed said. You're not attending a wedding tomorrow. You're delivering a verdict. I ran my fingers over the fabric. Cool, smooth, powerful. Thank you, I murmured. You've earned it, he replied. I'll pick you up at 6. Everything is in place. The AV team is ours. The projector access is ours. And Inspector Hale will be in the lobby at 8 sharp. Inspector Hale, a federal investigator who specialized in white-collar crime. This wasn't going to be a scene. It was going to be a takedown. After Creed left, I stood in front of the mirror holding the tuxedo against my body. The reflection staring back at me was unrecognizable. This was not the woman Ethan tried to portray as unstable. This was not the woman Harper mocked behind my back. This was not the mother my son dismissed as dramatic. This was a woman sculpted by fire, a woman who rebuilt herself from ashes, a woman whose heart had been shattered and sharpened. I spent the rest of the night reviewing the presentation one last time. Slide 1, Harper's credit card statements funded by company accounts. Slide 2, Ethan's wire transfers to Herschel LLC. Slide 3, fake lease agreements used to secure a federal loan. Slide 4, Ethan's emails to the investigator plotting to fabricate mental instability. Slide 5, the signature he forged in my name. Slide 6, the fraudulent tax filings. Slide 7, a summary of federal charges. Final slide, warrant asective. Please remain seated. Poetic, brutal, final. At around 3 a.m., exhaustion finally hit me. I lay down, staring at the ceiling, letting the weight of what tomorrow meant sink in. They weren't just losing a wedding. They were losing their empire, their freedom, their illusion of power. And maybe, just maybe, tomorrow I'd get closure. Not the kind you cry over, the kind you conquer. When the sun finally rose, I didn't feel fear. I felt ready, more ready than I had ever been for anything in my life. The tuxedo hung on the closet door like a prophecy. My war paint, my declaration, my rebirth. At 6 p.m., I stepped into that tuxedo, and by 8 p.m., I would be stepping into Ethan and Harper's wedding, not as a guest, but as their executioner. The grand ballroom at the St. Regis looked like a scene ripped straight from a billionaire romance fantasy, crystal chandeliers dripping light, thousands of pink roses arranged in arrogant abundance, an ice sculpture of intertwined initials, E and H, and guests dressed like royalty. Everything screamed wealth. Everything screamed Ethan's ego. Creed and I watched the ballroom through the security feed from a private suite upstairs. He studied the monitors with analytical precision. They spent at least $250,000 on this wedding, Creed muttered. With my company's money, I replied. On the screen, I saw Harper glide into the ballroom in a gown dripping with diamonds. Diamonds paid for using a corporate card she wasn't authorized to touch. She beamed, waving like she was some kind of celebrity. Then my mother appeared beside her, wearing a champagne-colored dress far too youthful for her age, laughing loudly, introducing herself as if she were royalty. This is the happiest I've seen them, Creed commented. Enjoy it while it lasts, I said coldly. The ceremony began soon after. We watched as Ethan stood at the altar, looking smug and victorious. Guests whispering turned to applause as Harper took her place beside him. They exchanged vows dripping with dramatic nonsense. I promise to honor you, Ethan said, staring at her with false devotion. I promise to support your dreams, Harper cooed, squeezing his hands. The crowd sighed with admiration. I nearly gagged. Then came the reception. Guests flooded the room. Champagne flowed like water. Ethan moved from table to table, shaking hands, accepting congratulations. Harper posed for pictures, basking in the attention she'd stolen. My mother, she was bragging, telling everyone Lila was never strong enough for Ethan. Harper is his real match. Hearing that stabbed deeper than I expected, but it didn't break me, it steeled me. Creed checked his watch. It's almost time. Let them finish their toasts, I said. Let them feel unbeatable for just a few more minutes. On screen, Ethan tapped his champagne glass and delivered a speech with all the false humility he could muster. Tonight, he said, is proof that destiny always brings the right people together. I felt a flicker of dark amusement, because destiny was indeed bringing people together, just not in the way he expected. After the speeches, the house lights dimmed and sentimental music began. Harper's montage video flashing across the massive screens. Photos of them kissing in Paris, holding hands on yachts, laughing at beaches, living the dream they stole from me. The crowd oohed and ah. Creed nodded to the technician, who typed a command. The feed flickered, paused, then glitched, and the romantic montage disappeared. Perfect. Time to go, Creed said. I stood up, smoothing the tuxedo over my shoulders. No trembling, no hesitation, just purpose. I walked toward the elevator while the ballroom spiraled into confusion below, and as the screens turned black, I stepped into the ballroom doors, ready to expose every crime my husband and sister ever committed in front of 300 stunned guests. The double doors of the ballroom loomed ahead of me, tall, polished, and glowing under the chandeliers. 2 security guards stepped in front of me. Ma'am, this is a private event. Before they could finish, Alexander Creed appeared behind me like a shadow given form. And I own this building, he said sharply. Step aside. Recognition flashed in their eyes. They moved back instantly. Perfect. I pushed open the doors. Silence slammed into the room like a shockwave. 300 guests, mid-toast and mid-bite, turned in unison. Harper froze on stage, lips parted, hands still wrapped around Ethan's arm. Ethan's smile snapped off his face, replaced by a look of pale confusion. But it was my mother's expression that nearly made me smile. Pure horror. I walked forward slowly, my footsteps echoing against the marble floor. The black tuxedo caught the golden lights, turning me into a shadow cutting through a sea of pastel gowns and expensive suits. On the screens behind Harper and Ethan, the feed flickered again, waiting for my signal. Lila? Ethan's voice cracked through the mic, carried across the entire hall. What are you doing here? I stopped in the center of the dance floor, Offering a toast, I said, my voice smooth and steady. A ripple of whispers moved through the guests. Harper looked desperate now, eyes wide, chest rising and falling quickly. "Ethan, make them turn it off," she hissed. Ethan forced an unconvincing laugh. "Everyone excuse us. There seems to be a technical." I raised the small remote in my hand and clicked. The screens behind them went black for a moment, then lit up with a spreadsheet filled with transactions. Gasps erupted. "What the—" Ethan muttered. I turned toward the crowd, my voice carrying without needing amplification. "Ladies and gentlemen, tonight you were invited to celebrate love, but what you're about to see is not a love story." Click. A high-definition image filled the screens. Harper Lane, Cartier purchase, $12,800 paid via Carter Development's corporate card. Guests murmured louder now. "Ethan," Harper whispered, her face draining of color. "Do something." Another slide. "Wire transfer. $45,000. Harper Lane, Consulting, LLC. Signed by Ethan Carter." Click. "Suite rent for Lennox Grand, $5,200. Paid monthly for 3 years." Harper grabbed Ethan's arm like she could anchor herself to him, but Ethan was too stunned to react. Click. Then came the real bombshell. Ethan's emails. "If you can't find dirt, fabricate something. Her mother and sister will testify." We go with a mental instability angle. A shriek tore from my mother's mouth. "That's taken out of context," she cried. "No," I said coldly. "It's exactly in context." Click. Now the forged signatures appeared. Mine and Ethan's side by side, mismatched and sloppy. Click. Then the falsified loan paperwork, fake tenants, fake occupancy rates. A federal crime laid bare in front of 300 witnesses. Panic filled Ethan's face, Harper's face, and my mother's face like ink spreading in water. People in the audience began standing, some recording, some whispering, some backing away like the floor might explode. I stepped closer to Ethan and Harper. "You wanted a big audience?" I said softly. "You've got one." But the night wasn't over, because the next slide wasn't evidence. It was the moment law enforcement walked through those ballroom doors. The ballroom was no longer a wedding. It was a courtroom. 300 guests watched in stunned silence as Ethan and Harper stood frozen at the head table, faces drained, hands trembling, their perfect evening ruined slide by slide. But I wasn't finished, not even close. "Let's continue," I said calmly, clicking the remote. The screens behind them displayed the final slide. Warrant active. "Do not leave the premises." A sharp collective gasp swept through the room. Ethan's voice cracked. "Lila, what is this? This is illegal." "You can't." But the ballroom doors opened behind me with a heavy thud. Every head turned. Inspector Hale walked in, flanked by 2 uniformed officers, the same Inspector Creed had briefed earlier. The bride and groom's faces crumpled. Perfect. Hale strode to the center of the room, his voice calm but authoritative. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're here on federal orders." Harper whimpered. Ethan took a step back. The inspector faced them. "Ethan Carter, Harper Lane, due to substantial evidence of federal bank fraud, embezzlement, asset laundering, and falsification of legal documents, you are both under arrest." The room erupted into gasps, screams, whispers. Harper clutched Ethan's arm. "Ethan, do something. Fix this." But Ethan was already sweating, shaking, confused, desperate. This is a mistake," he shouted. "This is her. She set this up. She's unstable. Ask her mother. Ask." He looked toward my mother. Mom stood frozen, realizing the weight of her betrayal was now public. Every whisper, every lie, every "she's unstable" had become evidence against her credibility. Inspector Hale didn't blink. "All evidence has been verified by independent auditors and federal agents," he said. "This is not a domestic dispute. This is a financial crime scene." The officers moved in. Handcuffs clicked. Ethan shouted, "Don't you touch me. I built this city. IOW in this." "No," I said quietly, stepping forward. "I built it. You stole it." Harper's hands shook violently as another officer cuffed her. "You ruined everything," she screamed at me. "You're jealous. You always have been." You stole my husband, I said. You stole my company. You stole years of my life. But your biggest mistake was assuming I wouldn't fight back. Harper lunged forward before an officer held her back. You bitch, she shrieked. The guests were recording now. Phones everywhere. The downfall of Ethan and Harper Carter would be on every social feed by morning. My mother stumbled forward, reaching for Harper. Stop! This isn't right! Lila, stop this! She's your sister. I turned to her, my voice colder than ice. I didn't destroy her, I said. She destroyed herself. Ethan tried one last pathetic attempt. Lila, please, help me. We can fix this. Just say something. I stared at him, feeling nothing. You erased me. Now it's your turn. The officers escorted Ethan and Harper out through the stunned crowd as whispers and cameras followed their walk of shame. The ballroom, once dripping with romance and excess, now looked like a battlefield, and I was the last one standing. But the fallout wasn't over, because the last person I needed to confront wasn't Ethan, it was my own son. The ballroom emptied slowly after Ethan and Harper were dragged out in handcuffs. Guests whispered in clusters, their glamorous gossip now replaced with shock and disbelief. Some avoided looking at me, some stared in awe, some recorded discreetly, knowing tonight would go viral. But none of that mattered, not yet, because standing near the back wall, pale and trembling, was the one person I had avoided looking at all night. Logan, my son. His face was a battlefield of emotions, confusion, fear, anger, shame. Everything he thought he knew had just collapsed in front of him. His father arrested, his aunt exposed, his grandmother humiliated. All the lies he had swallowed burned away. He didn't move toward me, didn't speak. So I took the first step. I walked toward him slowly, my tuxedo whispering with each step, my breath steady despite the tremor inside my chest. When I stopped a few feet away, he lowered his eyes. For the first time in weeks, he looked like a child again. Mom, he whispered, one word, small, broken, not an accusation, not an insult, not a weapon molded by Ethan, just Mom. I swallowed the knot in my throat. Logan, I said softly. Are you okay? He shook his head, staring at the floor like it might swallow him whole. I didn't know, he said quietly. He told me. He said you were unstable. He said you were losing it. He said Harper loved him for real and that you were toxic. His voice cracked. I believed him. I stepped closer. You believed the person offering you power, money, a Porsche, and a shortcut to success, I said gently. Anyone would struggle to see the truth in that. He looked up, eyes wet, guilt heavy. I was awful to you. Yes, I said honestly. You were. A tear slid down his cheek. I'm so sorry, Mom. I wasn't ready to hug him. Not yet. The wound was too deep. But I wasn't going to abandon him either. Logan, your father manipulated you. He used you, I said. But that doesn't mean you can't come back from this. He nodded slowly, wiping his face with the back of his hand. What happens now? He asked. I took a breath. Your father is going to be charged. Harper, too. Your grandmother will need to answer questions. Everything will change. He swallowed hard. And us? I looked him dead in the eyes. You'll have to earn your place with me again. Pain flickered across his face, but also relief. He wasn't expecting forgiveness. He was praying for a chance. I want to, he whispered. I want to fix this. I want to be better. I nodded. Then start by telling the truth, I said. Every email, every conversation, every manipulation your father used on you, you testify. You help clean the mess he made. He stiffened. That could ruin his plea deal. That's not your burden, I replied. He chose his path. Now you choose yours. Logan wiped his tears again and nodded. I'll tell the truth, he said. All of it. For the first time in a long time, I saw a flicker of the boy I raised. Not perfect, not redeemed, but willing to try. That was enough for now. But even after the arrests, the confessions, and the fallout, one last confrontation remained. The moment I finally faced my mother. I found my mother in one of the empty side halls of the hotel, sitting alone on a velvet bench beneath a massive oil painting. Her champagne-colored dress was wrinkled, her makeup streaked, and her hands trembled in her lap. For the first time in my life, she looked small. She didn't look up when I approached, but her voice, thin and sharp-cut through the dim hallway, "I suppose you're proud of yourself." I didn't answer immediately. I stood a few feet away, studying the woman who had raised me and betrayed me with the same mouth that once kissed my forehead good night. "Proud?" I finally said. "No, I'm exhausted." She sniffed. "Oh, please. You destroyed your sister's wedding. You humiliated your family. You—" I stepped forward sharply, the echo of my heels slicing through her sentence. "My family?" I repeated. "Mom, they stopped being my family long before tonight." Her lips trembled. She looked away, jaw tight. "I did what I had to do," she muttered. "Ethan told me you were unstable. He said you were harming the company. He wanted to protect you." I felt a bitter laugh rise. "Protect me?" I said. "He plotted to erase me. You helped him. You lied about me to investigators. You backed Harper while she slept with my husband. And you told guests tonight that I wasn't strong enough for him." She finally looked at me, eyes wet, defensive but unrepentant. "You weren't strong enough," she snapped. "You worked too hard. You were cold. You pushed Ethan away." I just wanted him to be happy. I stared at her, stunned by the simplicity of her cruelty. "He was happy," I said. "Happy using me. Happy stealing from me. Happy letting Harper help him destroy my life." She shook her head quickly, as if trying to rewrite reality. "Harper is young," she whispered. "She deserves happiness, too." "And I didn't?" I asked quietly. Silence. My mother's fingers tightened around her clutch. "You've always been difficult, Lila. Always too independent, too ambitious. No man wants a woman who outshines him." "Ethan was trying." "Trying to commit federal fraud," I cut in. "Trying to steal my company. Trying to paint me as mentally unstable." Her mouth fell open. "You're being dramatic." I stepped closer. "No," I said coldly. "You are being delusional." Her face crumpled. Not because she realized she was wrong, but because she realized her control over me was gone. For the first time in our lives, she couldn't manipulate me, couldn't guilt me, couldn't twist things to protect her narrative. "I did everything for this family," she whispered. "I sacrificed everything." "You sacrificed me," I said softly, "for the approval of a man who was using all of us." My mother's jaw quivered. "Lila, please. I'm old. I can't survive without this family." I took a long breath. "You should have thought about that before helping them bury me." She reached for my hand, weakly, desperately. "Please, don't let them take me too." I pulled my hand away gently. "You made your choice," I said. "Now live with it." She let out a broken sound, half sigh, half sob, as I stepped back. The woman who had once taught me how to hold a spoon, how to tie my shoes, how to stand tall, had to watch me walk away. But as I stepped outside into the cool night air, one truth settled deep in my bones. My story wasn't ending with revenge. It was about to begin again, with power, purpose, and a name reborn. The courthouse hallways always smelled like old paper and cold air, but today they held something heavier truth. Raw, undeniable truth. Ethan and Harper had been arraigned only hours earlier. Federal charges, multiple counts, no easy exit. Logan had given his full statement. Every lie Ethan fed him, every manipulation, every threat. He stood taller afterward, not proud, redeemed. But my final confrontation wasn't with Ethan or Harper or even Logan. It was with her, my mother, Elaine Carter. She sat alone on a wooden bench outside courtroom 3B, wringing her perfectly manicured hand, mascara smudged, her once immaculate composure shattered. For the first time in my life, she looked small. When she saw me walking toward her, she stood quickly. "Lila, sweetheart, wait, please." I didn't stop. I didn't rush toward her either. I simply walked until I stood directly in front of her. Her lips trembled. "I didn't know things would go this far," she whispered. "I only wanted—" "You only wanted what?" I cut in. "To replace me with Harper because she was easier to control? Because she made you feel young? Because she obeyed you?" My mother's face crumpled. "I thought," she swallowed, I thought Ethan truly loved her. I thought you were too strong, too independent. You never needed me. I stared at her. There it was. The root, the truth. The reason she chose Harper. Mom, I said softly, I needed a parent, not a critic, not a rival, not someone who measured my worth against my sister. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I was jealous of you, she admitted, your success, your strength, the way people respected you. Your father adored you more than he ever loved me. I didn't want to be forgotten. I closed my eyes for a moment. The truth hurt, but it also freed me. Mom, I said, opening my eyes again, you betrayed me, publicly, deliberately. And when I fell, you celebrated. She sobbed harder and reached for my hand. Please forgive me, sweetheart. I'm your mother. I stepped back. No, I said calmly. You're the woman who gave birth to me. But being a mother is about loyalty, love, protection. And you chose none of those. She shook her head desperately. Lila, please, please don't leave me alone. I inhaled deeply. You're not alone, I said gently. You still have Harper. The words landed like a blow. Her knees buckled, and she sank back to the bench. Because for the first time, she understood. Harper couldn't save her anymore. Ethan was gone. Her lies were public. Her reputation was shattered. And I wasn't coming back. I turned and walked down the hallway, each step lighter than the last. Outside the courthouse, Logan waited for me. Are you okay? He asked. I nodded. I am, I said. For the first time in a long time, I am. He hugged me, hesitant at first, then tighter, as if he feared losing me again. And for the first time, I embraced him without pain. We walked toward Creed's waiting car. The future wasn't perfect. It wasn't guaranteed, but it was mine again. Built not from survival, but from rebirth. The woman they tried to erase came back stronger, sharper, unstoppable. Ethan lost everything. Harper lost everything. And I finally found myself. Did you like the story? Which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you enjoyed the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep creating more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. There's a lot more waiting for you on my channel. Tales by Aunt Emery. Don't forget to subscribe.